Hi, this is Charlie Eichner, the creator of The Writing Code, with a quick video tutorial on editing. Today, fixing a disaster sentence. The Writing Code is the only comprehensive system for learning all genres of writing. We start with what you already know and love, storytelling, and then move to the more abstract aspects of writing, construction, and analysis. Along the way, you pick up 100 simple tricks of the trade and strategies to apply them right away. Take a look at this passage, one sentence, 67 words from a history journal. The article concerns the civil rights movement in the United States. Take a deep breath and listen. You might want to freeze the frame at the end to take a closer look. After the Second World War, the general drift of American public opinion toward a more liberal racial attitude that had begun during the New Deal became accentuated as a result of the revolution against Western imperialism in Asia and Africa that engendered a new respect for the non-white peoples of the world and as a result of the subsequent competition for the support of the uncommitted nations connected with the Cold War. Wow, did you get it? I didn't at first. So what do we do to fix this thing? Well, the first thing we need to find is the strong subject-verb-object core. We need to know who does what to whom. We need to make sure that whatever we write, sentences, paragraphs, wholes, chapters, or books, we start strong and finish strong. We also need to use specific nouns, not general categories, and action verbs, verbs that crackle and sound and move. Then, if we're working with a big piece, we need to break it up into manageable chunks. Then we need to hunt down strings of modifiers. All too often, writers use modifier after modifier after modifier. You can find these with prepositions. When you have too many modifiers, you can't find the subject or verb. Finally, we need to avoid bureaucraties and weasel words. If you can't say it directly and simply, don't say it at all. Okay. Now's the time to play that popular game show, Find That Subject. Find what's going on or who's going on. Okay, is it the Second World War, the general drift of American public opinion, a more liberal racial attitude, the New Deal, the revolution against Western imperialism, new respect, the non-white peoples, subsequent competition, support of the uncommitted nations, or is it the Cold War? Hard to tell. We need to chunk this into parts. We need to figure out who, what, when, where, why, and how. Then we might be able to get ourselves right into the meat of the story. Okay, there's a couple quick whens after the Second World War and during the New Deal. There's a couple whats, American public opinion, and became accentuated. And there's a couple more what's in this slide, against Western imperialism, engendered a new respect. There's also a where in Asia and Africa, a how as a result of the revolution, and a who, non-white peoples of the world. Then there's a why as a result, a couple more what's, subsequent competition, and support of uncommitted nations, and there's a how, connected with the Cold War. Now, one thing I noticed is so many prepositions. Prepositions are words that express connection or relation between things. In other words, they modify things. Now, when you have too many modifiers, you sometimes lose sight of the noun and the verb. Look for these prepositions. After, of, toward, that. Well, actually that's a conjunction, but it's also a connector. During, as, of, against, in, that, for, of, as, of, for, of, with. My count, 15 prepositions and 2 conjunctions. Now when you isolate the prepositional phrases and the conjunctions, you're left with the subject and verb, which in this case is, the general drift became accentuated. Became accentuated? The general drift became accentuated? What does that mean? Well, the drift is easy to figure out. The whole piece is about the movement toward more liberal racial attitudes. But became accentuated? that hides a lot. The passive voice makes it hard to figure out who's doing what to whom. We do see that change, that liberalization, but who's doing it? What's responsible for this liberalization? Look through those whats that we listed before and see if you can find it. My answer is that you can't, except for in the overall gist of the piece. The real subject of this whole passage, this 67-word passage, is, drumroll please, Americans. They never get mentioned directly, but they're the ones who drive this whole piece. Americans developed more liberal racial attitudes about race. Now let's look at some of the other passages in this sentence. More liberal racial attitude that had begun during the New Deal. The focal point here is the New Deal. The New Deal was a major event that changed things. The New Deal began the process. Now, look at this disaster. As a result of the revolution against Western imperialism in Asia and Africa that engendered a new respect for the non-white peoples of the world. Okay, a lot of PC stuff here and some politically loaded stuff too. Revolution against Western imperialism refers to independence movements. What did they do? They created new respect for non-white peoples. Don't use the word engendered, it's too gloppy. Finally, look at this section. And as a result of the subsequent competition for the support of the uncommitted nations connected with the Cold War. Again, what's the center point? What's the focal point of activity here? It's the Cold War, the thing that obsessed us for 50 years. What did it do? It prompted us to confront racism to protect our image. Now, we could make that sentence even easier by getting rid of that last 4 words, to protect America's image. So we have, the Cold War also prompted the U.S. to confront racism. Okay, quick look at the subject-verb-object cores of all of these new 4 sentences. Americans developed more liberal attitudes. Very strong subject-verb-object core. The New Deal began the process. Debatable, but strong core. This is longer and clunkier, but it still has the strong core, as does this one. Now, let's look at these 4 sentences one after another. After World War II, Americans adopted more liberal attitudes about race. The New Deal began the process. Independence movements in Asia and Africa created new respect for non-white populations. The Cold War also prompted the U.S. to confront racism. That's not too bad, is it? Okay, the old version had 67 words in 1 sentence. The new version, 39 words in 4 sentences. That's fewer than 10 words per sentence. As way of comparison, the old version used almost 7 times as many words per sentence. Okay, let's review our strategy. Start by hunting for the subject. Failing that, you need to break the piece down into chunks, then look for the prepositional phrases, which will have the modifiers hiding the subject and verb. Then we can isolate the subject and verb, break long sentences into short sentences, and of course, don't forget to have a strong subject-verb-object core for each new sentence. Well, congratulations, you're now an editor. Tell me where to send the diploma. Meanwhile, give me a call to set up some writing code seminars for your school or business. Call 203-287-8928 or email me at eichner@gmail.com and check out the website also, thewritingcode.info. Thanks for watching.